Okay, so this is the form that I am going to use. I brought it out from the house. I usually don't bring things from the house, but I love the shape of this. This is going to be a two-step process. I'm going to cover my loaf pan with some plastic, and I'm going to put a slab on here and create a form. Let it dry a bit, take it off, and then use that as the form. Because we know the clay is going to shrink about 14%, if I just use this as the form, then it's going to be a much smaller loaf pan than I want. So if I get wrinkles or creases on the inside, it does not matter. There we go. That should about do it. Perfect. So as with anything, you need to be patient as you go around. We can cut some of this excess off because we know we have too much. That will make it a little bit easier. And it's a good idea to take off a little bit at a time. If you take off too much, it's more of a problem than if you have to keep taking off little bits. And we just need to go around very patiently, working that clay into the mold by pulling it up a little bit, not pushing it down. Yes, and if you get too impatient, you do get little wrinkles, and you just have to straighten them out. So what I will do now is I will go along the bottom and take all this extra off. We have a pretty good idea where things are now. When they have a really sharp side like this coming to the bottom, it does take a little bit longer to get it all formed down. And because it does have that steeper side, it will have to set up a little longer than something that has a less steep or more gradual side to it, and or is not as high. This is high and steep, so I know it's going to have to sit for a while. The rest of the trimming we are going to have to wait until it is off the loaf pan. Okay, it is only about 3 hours later, but I did want to mention that I should have mentioned before. You do want to get this off the mold before it dries too much, otherwise it will crack. It won't have any room for the shrinkage, and as it comes into the form that you have underneath, it will crack because there isn't enough room. So there we are. It came off pretty well. I'll just stick the edges in a little bit. It actually allows me to form it in a bit anyhow. So tomorrow when it's set up a little bit more, then I will trim those edges. It still won't support the walls if we turn it over onto the bottom. So what I'm going to do, so we have some workability tomorrow, is cover this up with plastic, and then that way it won't dry too much. First thing in the morning, I will come out and fiddle with those edges ever so much, and then bring you back when it's ready to get trimmed, and we'll do the next step. Here we have a slab. It's all compressed on both sides. We don't want to go through all this work only to have it crack in the firing. Now we are going to cut a piece. We'll just make this a little more rectangular. And if you do have a slab roller and you have trouble always rolling, or you don't like always rolling out a slab and having it oval, I do have a video that I will link. It's just a little short video, and it'll show you how to roll a more rectangular slab. So I will put that down in the description. So this first mold that we made yesterday has sat overnight, covered up, and I uncovered it first thing this morning. So it's been sitting for probably another 5 hours, and you can see I can still slightly move it. I don't want to move it too much here, but it's going to be firm enough to support the slab. So we are going to go through the same process that we did yesterday. I'm just going to slightly round these corners because we know that yesterday we had to take some of the bulk off of the corners. So we are going to set this on top of the other form, trying to center it best we can. Get our banding wheel again. And we are going to go through the same process as yesterday, just pulling this slab in. Now, we do have to be a little more careful because the form underneath is not as firm as what our original pan was. You do not want to let it firm up to be really hard. Otherwise, it's going to shrink and you've defeated the purpose of doing the multiple steps. Okay, this will set up overnight again. You can see that I have a few indentations. I will deal with those tomorrow. In the interim though, we are going to leave the other form underneath this one. As you can see, we are quite a bit larger than we were yesterday. And keeping this form on top of the other form will keep both of them a little more moist so that the form on the very bottom will still have some time to play with that and shape it. This one, we will also, once we remove the next layer off of it, we'll have time, it'll keep it moist, and we'll have time to form this one as well. So this will go back under the plastic later tonight. I'll leave it uncovered until it's time to go to bed, and I will cover it up and uncover it in the morning. Here we have our mold that we made over our other mold, which was acting as our form. After I finished recording and I came out last night to cover this up, I did lift it off and put a piece of plastic over the other mold so that it wouldn't stick. And I think I had said that we would do a third one. I think this might be the size I want. So we are going to flip this whole thing over. Here is our original mold that we used as the form, and here is the other. Now it is still soft enough that I can push that little indent out, and I'm supporting it with the, let's bring you in a little closer here. Get this. So I'm just supporting the outside with my hand and pushing up against it. It is still soft enough to move, but that's about it. Just take some of these little bits off. This is one of the Matul's, it's like a grater. I can't remember if they call it a Sureform or a shredder or what they call it. Now what I'm looking for here is not so much perfection as making the sides level. When it's dry, they will be much easier. So I'm going to take a damp sponge and encase this edge and do some cleanup. I plan on using this mold for years unless it meets a demise and I break it. So I am going to take the time to make it a little prettier. And it is a good idea, because things do happen. If you really like the shape that you've made, go and do some clones of it, and then that way if it does have an accident, you still have some and you're not starting from ground zero again. Very happy with the size. I think if I go any bigger, then we're starting to get to be a little large for a loaf pan. And as I'm looking at these right now, I can see the dark brown one being more of a loaf, a pastry loaf, like banana bread, pumpkin loaf, that sort of thing. And this one could do the same, as well as it might be more of a meatloaf size. So it is nice to have different sizes for people. There will be some videos coming up as we make some different loaf pans together, as far as how we do it, and then of course the handles and all that sort of thing. As I mentioned, I do love doing functional bakeware and ovenware, serving dishes, so there will be videos definitely to come on this. So thank you for joining.